What if I told you there is a man who can cheat right in front of his wife, and she would never know? Let me tell you a story. A story not of the village, but of the city, right here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, where the air is filled with the noise of ambition, flashing lights, and secrets too heavy to carry in daylight. His name was Honorable Philip Chibueze, a man of charm, a man of power, a man with two faces. To the public, he was everything a politician should be. Bold when he stood at the podium, generous when he gave to charity, confident when he walked into a room. His smile was the kind that made people believe in promises. Newspapers called him a rising star. Party members whispered that one day he could even become a minister. But behind closed doors, Philip carried another life. A life carefully hidden. A life built on lies so smooth that they never tripped over themselves. He was not careless, no. Philip was an artist, and his art was cheating. He lived with his wife, Chisom, in Maitama, where glass houses sparkled at night and neighbors competed with one another in quiet luxury. Chisom was no ordinary woman. She was intelligent, sharp, the kind of wife people described as a pillar. She worked in media research, and her mind was trained to detect lies, to notice what people tried to hide. Many said Philip was lucky to have her, and he knew it. Yeah, Philip had perfected his disguise. He had found a way to cheat not behind his wife's back, but right under her nose. How? With politics? Whenever his phone rang, even in Chisom's presence, he would pick it up with confidence. He would say things like, "Yes, the delegates must be aligned," or, "No, the stakeholders prefer the Hilton over Transcorp. Let's maintain protocol." His voice was calm, professional, full of political language. Chisom, hearing this, would sip her tea and nod. She believed he was speaking with party members, campaign managers, or donors. She never suspected that on the other end of the line, a young woman was smiling, twirling her hair, listening to his sweet words dressed up as political jargon. For Philip, every conversation was a code. Every meeting with his girlfriends was disguised as a stakeholder dinner. Every late-night call was a security briefing. He even saved their names under titles like Director of Logistics or Zonal Coordinator. If Chisom ever glanced at his phone, what she saw looked exactly like politics. This was his gift and his curse. One evening, as the rain tapped against their large windows, Chisom noticed something unusual. Philip was in the living room, phone to his ear, speaking about mobilization strategy. But just for a second, just a heartbeat, he smiled. Not the professional smile she had seen on TV, but a softer one, a private one. A smile a man saves for someone he should not. Chisom tilted her head, watching. Something in her gut whispered. But before doubt could grow, Philip ended the call and turned to her with that same politician's calm. "It's going to be a busy week," he said. "We have a youth forum to prepare for." He kissed her forehead and walked upstairs. The whisper in her gut faded. After all, wasn't this the life of a politician? There were other moments too. A lipstick stain once appeared faintly on his shirt collar, but Philip laughed it off as a supporter's over-enthusiastic hug at the last campaign rally. Another time, she found an unfamiliar perfume lingering in the car, but Philip explained that he had given a ride to a donor's wife. His answers were always quick, always reasonable, always wrapped in the language of his world. Chisom wanted to trust him. In Abuja, where rumors spread like wildfire, trust was the only way to survive. She told herself she was being paranoid. But Philip's life outside their home was much darker. He kept a second phone, his so-called party line, hidden in the glove compartment of his black Prado Jeep. This phone was the bridge between his political world and his private affairs. Whenever a call came in and his wife was around, he always answered with authority. "Yes, I'll review the memo at 10. Or, "We'll handle the situation discreetly." But if you listened carefully, you'd realize these were not memos or political crises. They were plans for stolen evenings in woos, secret dinners in Jabi, or short escapes in luxury hotels. Abuja made this easy. The city is filled with spaces that look official but serve other purposes. Restaurants inside hotels, lounges disguised as conference centers, private clubs with locked doors. Philip knew all of them. He blended into the city like smoke. And still, Chisom remained in the dark, until one day. It was a Tuesday, the kind of day that carried nothing unusual. Chisom was at her office in Central Business District, reviewing data for a new media survey. Just after lunch, a courier walked in with a plain brown envelope. No sender's name, no explanation. He simply said, "Delivery for Mrs. Chibueze." Chisom thanked him, puzzled. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single photograph. Her breath caught. There was Philip, smiling, hand in hand with a woman she had never seen before. They were at a cafe, looking nothing like politician and constituent, but like two lovers lost in their own world. The walls of Chisom's office felt suddenly too tight. Her heart pounded, but her face remained still. Years of analyzing media lies had taught her composure. She closed the envelope, slid it back into her drawer, and sat quietly. When she drove home that evening, Philip was already in the living room, rehearsing lines for a TV interview. His voice was steady, his suit sharp. He looked at her and smiled, kissed her cheek, and said he had a stakeholder dinner that would run till midnight. Chisom nodded. She did not mention the photograph. She only watched him walk out the door. But that night, as Abuja's cars hummed outside and the security guard's radio crackled through the gate, Chisom sat alone on the balcony, holding the brown envelope. Her fingers traced the edge of the photograph under the moonlight. She did not cry, she did not scream. She simply whispered to herself, "If this man is truly a professional, then it's time I become a student of his game." The photograph was only the beginning. Chisom had no idea who sent it or why, but she knew one thing. From this moment, her quiet life in Maitama would never be the same again. They say a single picture is worth 1,000 words, but this one picture could destroy an entire marriage. The brown envelope did not leave Chisom's mind. It sat in her handbag like a live wire, buzzing silently with questions she could not yet answer. Who sent it? Why now? And most importantly, how many more secrets were hiding behind Philip's confident smile? Chisom was not the type to rush. She believed in patience, in watching, in collecting the small details that others overlooked. For days, she kept the envelope hidden, saying nothing. When Philip came home from late meetings smelling faintly of expensive cologne that was not his, she said nothing. When he laughed too softly into his phone, using political language to mask private feelings, she said nothing. She became a shadow in her own home, present, quiet, observant. Philip, meanwhile, was growing bolder. He believed he was untouchable. His double life was a performance he had mastered so well that he didn't even bother rehearsing anymore. One evening, at a fancy lounge in Woo's 2, he sat across from a young woman in a glittering dress. Across the room, politicians, businessmen, and influencers filled the air with chatter. Nobody suspected anything when they noticed Philip with a young woman. And if anyone did, they simply assumed she was a donor's aide. Just another stakeholder in the never-ending world of politics. But Chisom had begun to notice the cracks. She realized something strange. Philip used different tones depending on who he was speaking with. When he was truly with his party members, his words carried weight, his sentences clipped and formal. But when he was with his hidden lovers, his voice softened, his phrases became vague. "We'll meet at the location," he'd say. Or, "Let's discuss alignment privately." To Chisom, these had once sounded like strategy talk. Now, with the photograph in her drawer, she understood them for what they really were, codes. So Chisom decided on a quiet mission, to follow the codes, to map his movements, to read between the lines of his fake political talk. One night, when Philip claimed he was meeting youth delegates at a hotel, Chisom drove behind his car, keeping distance. Abuja at night was alive with headlights and restless music spilling from lounges. She followed carefully, heart racing, palms sweating on the steering wheel. Philip's Prado turned into a hotel car park in Jabi. Not the kind of hotel where international conferences were held, but one of those stylish places that could hide in plain sight. The kind where business meetings and secret affairs looked exactly the same from the outside. Chisom parked far enough to blend in, but close enough to see everything that mattered. She watched as Philip stepped out of the car, checked his reflection in the tinted glass, and adjusted his tie. Then a woman appeared from the entrance, tall, elegant, wearing a red dress that clung like it was made just for her. Philip smiled, that same private smile Chisom had seen once in their living room. He held her hand and led her inside. Chisom's chest tightened. The photograph in her drawer had just come alive before her eyes. She sat frozen for several minutes, unsure if she should storm in, scream, cry, or simply drive away. But something inside her, something stronger than pain, whispered, "Not yet. Wait. Watch. Gather everything. Then strike." She gripped the steering wheel and drove home in silence, her mind sharper than ever. The next morning, Philip strolled into the kitchen humming, his suit freshly pressed. He kissed Chisom on the cheek, thanking her for making breakfast, and casually mentioned how the youth delegates responded well last night. Chisom looked at him, smiled faintly, and said only, "I'm glad to hear that." But inside her, the campaign had already begun. She started noticing receipts in his jacket pocket, from restaurants she had never been to, from boutiques she had never shopped at. She quietly copied phone numbers from his party line and stored them in her own phone. Each night, when he claimed to be busy, she made notes. Time, excuse, location. Piece by piece, she built her evidence. Still, one question haunted her. Who had sent the brown envelope? Was it one of Philip's enemies? A jealous lover? Or someone who wanted her to open her eyes? Days later, Chisom's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. The voice on the other end was low, urgent, almost trembling. "Madam Chisom." "Yes. Who is this?" "Don't ask my name. Just know this. Your husband is not the good man you think. The photo you received is only the beginning. There is more. Much more." Chisom's breath caught. "Why are you telling me this?" The line went quiet for a moment. Then the voice said, "Because the next time he goes out, you must follow him. What you will see will change everything." And before she could ask another question, the call ended. Chisom went upstairs to her bedroom, phone still in her hand, the mysterious voice echoing in her ears. She knew her life was about to unravel in ways she could not yet imagine. The next outing Philip planned could expose the truth completely. But was she ready to face it? The first time betrayal cuts, it breaks you. The second time, it hardens you. The brown envelope was still tucked away in Chisom's drawer, but the photograph inside had already changed her eyes. Nothing Philip said sounded the same anymore. Every word he spoke, every coded sentence he whispered on the phone, felt like a mask stretched across a secret. And now, with that late-night anonymous call still echoing in her memory, she knew the next time he stepped out, she had to be ready. It didn't take long. Philip had grown comfortable in his rhythm of deceit. 3 nights later, as they sat at the living room, he casually mentioned, "The party leadership wants me to review some youth mobilization strategies. I'll be stepping out later tonight for a while." His tone was so natural, so convincing, that any outsider would have believed him without question. But Chisom simply nodded, hiding the storm in her chest. She had already decided. Tonight, she would follow. Honorable Philip is not the kind of politician who likes to move around with a convoy and escorts, except on special occasions when the situation requires it. When his Prado Jeep rolled out of the compound, Chisom waited a few minutes before sliding into her own car. She kept a safe distance, her headlights dimmed. Abuja at night was alive. Flashing billboards, music spilling from bars in Wuse, the endless movement of taxis. It was the perfect cover. This time, when she slid behind her steering wheel to follow him, her hands didn't tremble. She wasn't just a wife tailing her husband. She was a woman gathering evidence. Philip's Prado moved steadily ahead. Chisom couldn't see what he was doing inside the car, nor could she read his expressions, but she knew her husband's habits too well. The way the car glided unhurried through the road, not with the urgency of a late-night political meeting, but with the rhythm of someone heading somewhere comfortable, that alone told her everything. She didn't need to see him. She already knew. Finally, he turned into the parking lot of a luxury hotel in Woo's 2. Chisom parked her car in the shadows, hands steady on the wheel. She watched him step out. The woman was already waiting at the entrance. Same woman, but different gown tonight. Sleek, glittering under the yellow lights. She slipped her hand into Philip's with the ease of repetition. Together, they entered the hotel. Chisom's pulse quickened. For a moment, she wanted to stay put, to avoid the risk of being seen. But another voice inside her said, "If you stop here, you'll only ever have half the truth." She reached for a scarf from her back seat, wrapped it loosely over her head, and slipped on a pair of glasses she kept in her handbag. Nothing dramatic, just enough to soften her profile. Then she stepped out of her car and followed. The hotel lobby smelled of polished marble and expensive cologne. Chisom kept a careful distance, pretending to scroll on her phone. From where she stood, she could see Philip approach the reception desk with the woman at his side. He didn't hesitate, didn't look around nervously. He spoke with the calm authority of a man who had done this before. The receptionist nodded, typed quickly, and handed over a keycard. The woman smiled softly, leaning into Philip as though she belonged there. They moved toward the elevator, their hands still linked. Chisom's chest tightened, but this time, the pain didn't paralyze her. It sharpened her. She angled her phone low and snapped a photo. Grainy, but clear enough. Philip at the reception, and the woman beside him. Then, another photo as they waited for the elevator. The final shot captured the doors closing around them, sealing them inside. When silence returned to the lobby, Chisom turned away. She walked calmly back to her car, each step heavy but steady. Inside, she opened her notebook and jotted everything down. Hotel name, time, actions, evidence. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was documenting. I know some of you might be wondering, why gather evidence when he's already been caught red-handed? What some don't know is that Philip is a smooth talker, and people like and respect him. Chisom's parents trust him very much, and if Chisom doesn't provide convincing evidence, Philip will be able to wriggle out of it and convince everyone that he was misunderstood or wrongly accused. They will think that Chisom was being paranoid. Chisom's plan was to gather evidence without causing a scandal or doing anything that would bring shame or disgrace to her family. By the time Philip returned home past midnight, humming and smelling faintly of another woman's perfume, Chisom was already lying still in bed. She didn't ask how the strategy meeting went. She pretended to be sleeping and simply listened as he slipped into the bathroom. The next day, at her office, her phone buzzed again. It was the same hidden number. She answered immediately. "Madam," the voice said, low and firm. "What you saw last night is not new. That woman is only one of many. But listen carefully. One of them is closer than you think. Very close." Chisom's grip tightened on the phone. "What do you mean, closer?" she asked quickly, but the line went dead. Chisom sat frozen at her desk, the phone still pressed to her ear. The photograph had been bad enough. The hotel had been worse. But this new warning was different. The anonymous voice had just suggested something terrifying, that one of Philip's women was not a stranger from the city, but someone dangerously close. Someone who could already be within her world. When betrayal becomes a pattern, silence is no longer strength. It becomes a weapon. Chisom had crossed a line the night she followed Philip into the hotel lobby. She wasn't just the hurt wife anymore. She was a witness, a recorder, a woman slowly pulling together pieces of a puzzle her husband thought she would never see. The anonymous caller's last words wouldn't leave her mind. One of them is closer than you think. That single warning gnawed at her, more than the photograph, more than the hotel itself. Who could it be? Someone at her office? A neighbor? A family friend? The thought left her sleepless. She decided to act as if everything was okay and watch him more closely. One Friday evening, as they were having dinner, halfway through the meal, Chisom leaned forward. "Philip, you've been working late so often. I worry about your health. Are you sure all these strategy meetings are worth it?" He chuckled, waving his fork. "Politics is a battlefield, Chisom. You don't survive without sacrifice." But as he spoke, his phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a name, saved not as a person, but as Project Alpha. Chisom's eyes flickered, but she stayed calm. "Project Alpha?" she asked lightly. "That sounds important." Philip slipped the phone into his pocket with a laugh. "Just party matters. Nothing to worry about." She nodded, keeping her smile in place, but her mind was racing. Project Alpha wasn't a document. It wasn't a bill. It was someone. Later that night, when he finally drifted into sleep, Chisom reached for his phone. She unlocked it with his fingerprint while he snored gently, scrolled through the contacts, and there it was, Project Alpha. She clicked the name, copied the number into her notebook, then quickly placed the phone back where it was. Whoever hid behind that code name, she would find out. A week later, Chisom pretended she had to travel to Lagos for a work seminar. She packed a small bag, kissed Philip goodbye, and even let him drop her off at the airport entrance. But instead of boarding a flight, she circled back in a taxi and checked into a small hotel not far from their home. Her plan was simple: leave the house unguarded and see what Philip did when he thought she was gone. That very night, at 8:30 p.m., Chisom's phone buzzed with a message from the hidden number. "Madam, tonight he will not go far. Watch closely." Just within 30 minutes later, his Prado left the compound. Chisom took a taxi and followed at a distance. Philip didn't head towards Woos 2 this time. Instead, he turned into a quiet residential street in Maitama. He parked outside a duplex, honked twice, and the gate swung open like it had been waiting for him. Chisom's breath caught. This wasn't a hotel. This was someone's home. She stayed back and watched as Philip drove inside and disappeared. Moments later, a light flicked on upstairs. Curtains shifted. A silhouette moved against the glow. Tall, feminine, disturbingly familiar. And that was when the shock struck her like a blade. Chisom knew this house. She knew the family who lived here. She had sat in that very living room for dinners and laughed with its owner at charity galas. And now, seeing that outline at the window, the curve of the shoulder, the tilt of the head, there was no doubt left in her mind. It was her, Miss Omosefe Odaro. Her blood ran cold. Philip hadn't just betrayed her. He had dragged someone from their shared world into the heart of his lies. This was not about random women hidden in hotels. This was a wound cut straight into her circle, her trust, her dignity. Chisom gripped the edge of her seat, every muscle trembling. Rage screamed at her to storm through the gate, to pull the woman down by her hair, to tear Philip's mask off once and for all. But another voice whispered, the same voice that had kept her patient all this time. "Not yet. Not like this. There's a better way to end this." She forced her hands to still, her breath to steady. She didn't need to create a scene on a quiet Maitama street. And as she sat there, her mind sharper than broken glass, she realized something chilling. The anonymous caller had been right. Philip wasn't careless. He was bold. Bold enough to think he could build a second life right in front of her, in a home she knew. The trap wasn't just closing on Philip anymore. It was closing on Chisom's entire world. And she knew, with a certainty that made her skin prickle, that the next move had to be hers. Philip forgot the ladder he climbed had a name, and that name was Chisom. For days, Chisom carried the weight of her discovery like a stone in her chest. The Maitama duplex, The photographs, they were enough to tear a marriage apart. But Philip was not just her husband. He was her father's favorite, the golden boy everyone in her family trusted. And Chisom was not just any politician's wife. She was the only daughter of Chief Nwachukwu, a man whose name still opened doors in Abuja. Former governor, now kingmaker. Men like Philip lived or disappeared in politics by the nod of men like him. Philip knew it too. He never missed a chance to flatter him, never failed to say, "Without you, I wouldn't be where I am." And yet, Philip thought he could play Chisom. That night, Chisom drove to her parents' Asakura home. She didn't waste time on tears. She sat beside her father in the quiet of his private lounge, set the brown envelope on the glass table, and began to speak. "Papa," she began, her voice steady, but low. "I need to show you something." One by one, she laid the photographs on his desk. Philip holding hands at the hotel, Philip's car at the Maitama duplex, and then the one that made her father's jaw tighten. Miss Omosefe Odaro. For a long moment, Chief Nwachukwu said nothing. He simply stared, his fingers pressed together like he was holding back a storm. Finally, his voice came, calm but cutting. "Do you know what this means, Chisom?" "Yes," she whispered. "It means Philip has been cheating. For years." "No," her father said, leaning forward. "It means he has spat on the hand that fed him. Omosefe is not just any woman. She is tied to allies. I cannot afford to insult." And Philip, his voice hardened. "Philip thinks he can play with the dignity of this family and survive it?" That night, a decision was made. A week later, at a private dinner in Asakura, attended by some of Abuja's most powerful figures, ministers, party leaders, men whose words shaped policy, Philip arrived, smiling, unaware that the ground beneath him was about to collapse. He launched into a speech before he even sat down. "Sir, the people are with us. With your guidance, I believe the next caucus session will swing our way." "Sit, Philip." Chisom's father interrupted. His voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. Chisom sat quietly beside her mother, her face serene, her hands folded. Midway through the evening, Chief Nwachukwu rose to speak. His voice carried through the room like thunder wrapped in silk. "We have all gathered here to discuss loyalty," he said, eyes sweeping the table. "But loyalty is not only for politics. It is for family. It is for honor." Philip shifted in his seat, his smile faltering. "Tonight," Chief continued, "I have evidence. Evidence of betrayal that cuts not only into my household, but into the integrity of this party." And then, like a blade being unsheathed, the photographs appeared on the table, one after the other. Philip's secrets lay bare under the bright chandelier. The room fell silent. Some gasped, others exchanged looks. Philip's mouth opened, but no words came. His charm, his excuses, his polished lies, none of them could survive the cold eyes of the men who had once called him brother. "Chief," he began weakly. "Enough!" Nwachukwu snapped, his voice sharper than steel. "You used my name, my influence, my daughter, to climb, and you thought you could spit on all of it without consequence? From this night, Philip, you are nothing. No seat, no support, no future in this party." The words landed like a death sentence. Philip's face drained of color. He looked at Chisom, but her eyes were calm, steady, unflinching. She had become the mirror of his downfall. Within weeks, whispers spread, deals evaporated, invitations disappeared. Philip's name, once spoken with admiration, was now laced with mockery. The same network that lifted him to honorable now dragged him down to disgrace. And through it all, Chisom remained silent. She did not need to shout. She did not need revenge painted in fire. Her power was in her patience, in her decision to wait, to strike when the fall would be most complete. Philip lost everything. The Maitama mansion in the Prado Jeep, All of it belonged to Chisom's father. Stripped of power and dignity, he was cast out. Not long after, Chisom divorced him. Although Chisom remains curious about the mysterious person who sent the brown envelope and called her with details of her husband's secret moves, she has never heard from that person again since the truth about her husband was exposed. Yet, in her heart, she remains deeply grateful for the unseen hand that helped her uncover the betrayal. Moral of the story: betrayal has consequences that sweet words cannot erase. Power borrowed on trust can be recalled in a single day. In marriage and in politics, faithfulness is not weakness. It is the only true foundation for legacy. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more powerful tales like this. Give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below.